Let's have a big round of applause for our local Golden guitarist, Derek DeMove. Good evening. I'm Golden Mayor Marjorie Sloan, and I welcome you to our 10th annual Mayor's Community Celebration. And I would also, before we get into the program, I would like to say that we originally said that the Colorado GoldMine Band was going to be opening. So Derek just did something extraordinary. He made a wonderful performance replacing an entire uniformed university marching band. So I think he deserves another round. He was great. Thank you, Derek. So let me start off now in this great event by introducing Colorado School of Mines President Paul Johnson, our host tonight, and he has a special welcome for you.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. Hey, welcome everyone to Mines. Thanks for coming out tonight. Congratulations to all the award winners. This is always a fun event for us. I was thinking as I was always walking over tonight that this kind of weather, I always question why I came here 4.5 years ago from the desert, because it's a little warmer down there today. But actually, when I get to an event like this, I always remember, well, the reason why we came up here was because of Golden, right? It really was about Golden. It really was about the community. It really was about how both, whether you're on the Mines campus or you're down in the city or whatever you're doing around here, there's really a special feel about this place. And I think that's what most of us are attracted to, and that's why a lot of you do what you do, that you're getting awards for tonight, is how special that is. And one of the very special things about Golden is our mayor, who, this is the Mayor's Community Celebration. And it will be the last one she presides over. And one of the very special things to me is the sort of co-award that we created a few years ago to add another award category to the list of things that we give out tonight. And I just wanted to use this opportunity just to say how much I have enjoyed working with you and how well you represent Golden. Most of you don't see this, but Marjorie comes to so many Mines events. She does kickoffs when we do community events out in the community and everything like that. She's been a very visible member on the campus, obviously, as well as off. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of Mines for just all the wonderful things that you have done for us in your time. And I hope whoever wins the election is just as wonderful as you are for the next year. So thank you.
I have a stool, but it seems like something in between might be better, but with Paul pulling up the microphone the way he did, this is better. So thank you, Paul. Those kind words are very much appreciated. And again, we appreciate Mines hosting this event in this great space. So tonight, it's really bitter cold outside, but it's going to be warm in here because we are going to be celebrating our community and the amazing people in it. Over the years, we've made it a tradition to have the community nominate people, businesses, and organizations who have made a significant, positive impact on our town of Golden. Additionally, as Paul just mentioned, we solicit nominations for those who've made a difference in Golden and here at the School of Mines. Mines is a tremendous partner for this event and for helping to better the Golden community through volunteering time and talents to a variety of local groups and projects. Tonight, we will honor a few of the people and groups who have gone above and beyond in their commitment to Golden. But before I go any further, allow me to introduce some of our honored guests here tonight. In addition to the awardees and all of you in the audience, we have Garrett Lucan from Congressman Ed Perlmutter's office. He will have a special presentation for our awardees. And we're also excited to have Dr. Martín Carcasson as our keynote speaker, and we'll tell you more about him in a little bit. But if you would wave from the audience right now, all the way in the back. He's a professor, but somehow he prefers the back row. So we'll be talking more about Martín in a little bit. In the audience, I would like our city council members to stand, so I make sure to recognize them. We have Saoirse, Mayor Pro Tem Casey Brown, Paul Haseman back there, Jim Dale right here. So, and we also have our city manager, Jason Slowinski, and he's already standing right over there. And this is also a good time to recognize and thank our great staff for helping out tonight. We have Bob Pierce from the video, Diane Tabiri back there on the camera, Carlin, who's the brains behind all this. And without them, this would not be what the event already is, believe me. So let's thank them. So here we are at the 10th year, and this is an opportunity to highlight all the efforts that people put forth, as well as provide you a speaker who will get our community fired up and in ways to engage and make a difference. And we will be hearing about this person who can help us make a difference, Dr. Carcasson, soon, but first, we want to honor some special people with the Mayor's Awards of Excellence. The first awards will go to individuals, nonprofits, and companies who've made a difference. The last award will go to a group who has demonstrated the amazing connection between Mines and the city. Mayor's Awards of Excellence are presented annually to individuals, and some of the qualities that the committee, and it is a citizens committee who decides who's going to be awarded this year. The characteristics are take initiative, exercise leadership, create community value, and serve as a role model. Our selection committee spent a long time narrowing down the impressive lists of nominees, all of which are worthy of our gratitude. The committee members will come up and decide whether or not they want to stand on this stool or on the floor. And they will introduce each of our windows and explain why they are getting the award. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Alan Gregory with Golden Rotary to come forward with the first winner of the evening.
Well, again, thanks, Mayor Sloan, and of course, the Golden Rotary Club is honored to participate here again. I'm kind of straddling the stool, so I'm somewhere between the president and the mayor here on my stance, but let me begin. So, launched in May 2017, Golden United is a nonpartisan, resident-driven effort to engage Golden community in respectful conversations. Their mission statement: by bringing together community members from all segments of society and ideologies for deep listening and understanding, Golden United strives to establish a shared commitment to key values and to civic actions that will advance our common goals and strengthen this small town with heart. That small town with the heart, that's us, Golden, yeah. For the past 2.5 years, the group successfully continued their mission through a variety of events. Most recently, Golden United hosted a candidate forum, which gave all city council candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves to Golden residents. Their 5 streams of action include: 1, a housing task force to address improved access to affordable housing; 2, community discussion forums focused on topics of interest and how to improve understanding and find common ground. 3, Flavors of Golden brings people from all walks of life together each November for a meal to celebrate our shared commitment to community. 4, unity rallies to speak out against acts of intolerance and hatred. Finally, Golden United teams with other organizations to support efforts that strengthen the community. Golden United is an organization, and I quote, of the people and for the people, and an example of democracy in action. For this, Golden United is presented with the 2019 Mayor's Award for Excellence. And here it is. Congratulations.
Thank you, Alan. Our second winner will be presented by Mayor Pro Tem Casey Brown, who is filling in for former Mayor Jacob Smith, who was on the committee, served us well, but right now he's sick and he can't talk. So Casey has stepped in for him.
I'm honored to be here and filling in as your substitute presenter, and I'm lucky that former Mayor Jacob Smith had some really excellent remarks, so I'll be reading from those. Like many of us, Chad Walks was frustrated with broadband options in Golden, but unlike many of us, he thought it might be worth trying to create an alternative. It turns out, conveniently, that he founded an internet service provider in Denver in the late 1990s. The market crash of 2000 killed his internet mogul aspirations, but it also meant that he had exactly the right experience and skill set to take on the challenge. With the help of a few neighbors, Chad launched a pilot project, testing whether it was possible to create a low-cost, high-quality, independent broadband system. 4 years later, their small-scale proof of concept has grown into a full-fledged community co-op with more than 300 members using the service all over Golden. And I'm happy to say I'm not just a substitute presenter today, I'm a satisfied customer as well. But I want to share one pivotal moment in the AU Wireless story. At one point during the early days, before AU Wireless had any staff or volunteers other than Chad, Chad was on vacation in the Bahamas when a huge thunderstorm hit Golden and took out power all over town. He emailed everyone he knew living near the AU Wireless switch, asking if someone could walk up the hill and reboot the system. Within minutes, more than 20 people had responded. People in Golden stepping up to help out the neighbors and the community. This was the moment that Chad knew that this whole crazy thing was really going to work. Other things to respect about AU Wireless: they work closely with the city and with the community partners like the American Mountaineering Center. They help bring broadband into lower income housing in Golden. Because there are no shareholders and no corporate owners, member dues and fees to cover the cost of the service go back into the network. Chad, with the help of his board of directors, 1 full-time employee, and 3 contract employees, has accomplished all of this while serving as a full-time firefighter in another fire district and as a volunteer firefighter with the Golden Fire Department. Chad and his work with AU Wireless highlight some of the very best of what makes Golden, Golden, and it is genuinely an honor to present him with the Mayor's Award for Excellence.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, Jacob, who really regrets not being here tonight. That was a great story, and it is very golden. The third award will be presented by Jeff Wotropka, who is a member of Golden Giddy Up, also a former award winning. Come on up, Jeff.
All right, the Golden Lions Club has been serving the Golden community since 1942. With over 8,000 hours of volunteer service in 2019 alone, the Golden Lions continue to make a positive impact within our community. Many of the community celebrations and events in Golden are supported by Lions Club volunteers. Local schools and students also greatly benefit from the contribution of the Lions Club. Each year, a graduating senior at Golden High School receives a financial scholarship for a continuing education program, and they contribute as well to the Golden High School after prom celebration. Annually, the Lions Club distributes plans to fourth graders at Fairmont Elementary as part of the Arbor Day program, and every Golden fourth grader receives a dictionary from the Lions Club as well. They conduct their vision screenings for preschool children as part of the Colorado KidSight program and have funded ski trips with the Foresight ski guides for children with visual impairments in the Jeffco Public Schools. Where there is a need, there's a lion. Supporting local programs such as the Golden Backpack Program, the Golden Young Professionals, and the Golden Civic Foundation has been a part of the Lions Club's long history. Other beneficiaries include the Jefferson Symphony Orchestra, the Colorado Lions Camp, the Go Farm Co-op, the Christian Action Guild, and Be a Tool program to help further the mission of supporting the community of Golden. The Lions Club exemplifies the spirit of what it means to give back to our community. This evening, we present the Mayor's Award for Excellence to the Golden Lions Club.
Thank you, Jeff. And to present the next award, we welcome to the stage Lisa DiCaro.
Okay, I'm definitely using the stool. Oh, wow. You're right, Marjorie, this is amazing. Okay. Thank you. We all know that Golden has become pretty popular over the past few years. We've also been fortunate to have some amazing food options, from the incredible farm-to-table dining at a Bayhouse to the fun yet upscale atmosphere at Miner's Saloon. And now we even have a multitude of options under one roof at Tributary Food Hall. In another town, this would lead great chefs and restaurateurs to compete with each other, not collaborate with each other. But this is Golden, where entrepreneurs are not only talented and smart, but also community-minded and not short-sighted. And two of the very best, Brandon Bortles from a Bayhouse and Noah Heaney from Miner's Saloon, have had the foresight, business sense, and love for community to bring together even more diverse dining options to all of us in downtown Golden. After 20 years of restaurant management experience, Brandon Bortles founded a Bayhouse in August of 2015. He began that endeavor with a collaboration, offering a generous 15% discount to people attending a show at Miners Alley Playhouse across the street. It benefited both businesses and all of their patrons and customers. Noah started working in restaurants at the age of 14. Since finding his way to Colorado in his early 30s, he has started a family and opened 3 restaurants in Golden. He's planted his roots firmly in Golden. One day, Brandon and Noah met, and they started talking about the exciting things happening in the Golden restaurant scene and about the voids still left to be filled. When Brandon needed a partner for his newest venture, a ramen restaurant, he called Noah. Over a couple of beers at Brandon's mom's 70th birthday party, they formed Nobleman LLC, named after Noah's child, Noble, and they hashed out a plan. As Brandon says, there's a great influx of tourists who come through Golden, but it's also a town that could be very walkable and have everything you'd want right here as a resident. That is our goal. Both of us live here, want to be here for the long haul. Small town feel with all the amenities, so you don't have to drive to Denver for a nice meal out, a bowl of ramen, or tasty tacos. So thank you, both of you, for coming together to form not one but 2 great new additions to Golden restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our final award of the evening is a special version of the Mayor's Awards for Excellence called the GoldMine Award that President Johnson and Professor Johnson alluded to. This is presented to someone who's made a big impression on both the city of Golden and the Colorado School of Mines. our committee member, Joe Del Nero, will present this award.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. A 2017 survey of more than 30,000 college students found that roughly 50% of students at 2- and 4-year institutions are food insecure. That means that they lack reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, healthy food. Whether it's limited time between classes and extracurricular commitments, or a lack of funds to access healthy food options, college students regularly miss meals. But one group is working hard to provide students with convenient, healthy food and resources here at Colorado School of Mines. Fighting Hunger at Mines is a student organization that's dedicated to decreasing food insecurity on campus. In addition to raising awareness to community resources and educating students on inexpensive and nutritious food meal preparation, Fighting Hunger at Mines also provides free, healthy meals to about 150 students each week. They have also partnered with the Golden Backpack Program and Hunger Free Golden, along with other organizations to help make our campus and Golden more food secure. So I'm pleased to announce that their dedication to supporting the physical and mental health of students on campus has earned Fighting Hunger at Mines the Mayor's 2019 GoldMine Award for Excellence.
And I would also like to, somebody in the back is reminding me that I should announce the presence of some other people. Counselor Laura Weinberg is here. And also, I now see in the back Carly Lorenz, who had a significant role in putting the evening together. And I know Alex was here. There you are. Alex is actually maybe the newest member of our Golden staff, and he helped greatly with putting this together. So thanks to all of you. All right, now we have something that I'm really proud of. Because there were 3 additional nominees this year who didn't get the award. There were others as well, but these 3 didn't get the award because they already had gotten the award. But their contributions have been so significant, and they have expanded their contributions to Golden since they got the award. So we really need to recognize them as well. They continue to demonstrate their commitment to the Golden community. The first is the Colorado School of Mines peer mentors, who are in charge of the Org Givers Service Day project. This annual event sends 1,250 Mines freshmen out into the Golden community to work really hard all day on projects for community organizations, individuals, businesses. The remarkable thing about this day is if you subscribe to organization's Facebook page, their Mines students pop up on every single one of those pages for gratitude for what they had done. So that's a terrific group. The next is Barb Borden, and she is here, isn't she? I thought, yes, Barb. She dedicates many hours to her website and newsletter. It used to be called golden.com, now it's Golden Today. And she brings people the latest goings on around town, as well as interesting pieces of history, and she sends these out to an ever-growing number of people. You know, she's a great contributor, has been and still is. So let's thank Barb. And last but not least, the Golden Backpack Program, and where's Peggy? There, yes. Peggy was the founder of the Backpack Program. For 10 years, this program has provided food for children and families in need in the Golden community. And it has remarkably expanded its reach to include summertime programs and now the very successful and important fresh food pantry. And this group actually works with the Minds group in fighting hunger. So it's a perfect intersection tonight. Thank you, Backpack Program. Now, if we could get all the award winners back up on stage, because we have Garrett Luckin from Congressman Ed Perlmutter's office to make a special presentation to our award winners. So maybe instead of, I don't think they'll all fit, so one or two representatives of each of the award winners come on up, and Garrett will make a presentation to you.
So thank you all. I apologize on behalf of Congressman Perlmutter, who could not be here tonight as he is back in Washington, D.C., but I'm honored to be here in his place to present a congressional record to each of the award winners. These records have been entered into the official proceedings and debates of the 116th Congress of the United States House of Representatives. I would also like to thank the City of Golden and Mayor Sloan, as well as our host, School of Mines, for this event tonight. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud Golden United for receiving the Golden Mayor's Award for Excellence. Golden United is a non-partisan, resident-driven effort to engage Golden area community members across all walks of life to find common ground and act with respect and dignity in strengthening the community. Golden United launched in 2017, gathering residents of different backgrounds and asking them to identify shared values and initial actions. Their mission continued through community forums, rallies, annual events, task forces, supporting other community events, and most recently, hosting a candidate forum for the upcoming election. This organization is an example of democracy in action, quote, of the people and for the people, end quote. I congratulate Golden United for receiving this well-deserved honor by Mayor Marjorie Sloan. Thank you for your contributions to our community. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. So I apologize, these might get a tad redundant, but I'll try and get through them quickly, not slow. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud Chad Walks for receiving the Golden Mayor's Award for Excellence. Chad Walks launched AU Wireless in 2015 with a handful of neighbors to see if he could create a low-cost community broadband system. Their proof of concept has since grown into a full-fledged co-op with more than 300 members using the service all over town. AU Wireless works with community partners like the American Mountaineering Center, and they are helping to bring broadband into lower-income households in Golden. Because there are no shareholders, subscriber fees go back into the network. Chad, along with the board of directors, 1 employee, and 3 contractors, has accomplished all of this while serving as a full-time firefighter in another jurisdiction and as a volunteer with the Golden Fire Department. I congratulate Chad Walks for receiving this well-deserved honor by Mayor Marjorie Sloan. Thank you for your contributions to our community. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud the Golden Lions Club for receiving the Golden Mayor's Award for Excellence. The Golden Lions Club has been serving the Golden community since 1942. Standing behind the International Lions Club motto of "We Serve," the Lions Club offers their services to anyone that needs help with a project. With over 8,000 hours of volunteer service in 2019, the Golden Lions continue to make a positive impact within the community. From constructing public bathrooms and pavilions to providing eyeglasses and scholarships to school children, where there's a need, there's a lion. Through funding efforts, engaging volunteers in community projects, and supporting local schools and students, the Lions Club is committed to making the City of Golden a better place to live, work, and play. I congratulate the Golden Lions Club for receiving this well-deserved honor by Mayor Marjorie Sloan. Thank you for your contributions to our community. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud Brandon Bortles and Noah Heaney for receiving the Golden Mayor's Award for Excellence. Brandon Bortles and Noah Heaney, both Golden residents, own competing restaurants. Brandon owns a Bayhouse and Noah co-owns Minor Saloon. Instead of focusing on competing for customers, Brandon and Noah decided to work together to bring more diverse dining options to downtown Golden. This collaboration has already brought us Sir Mesa Taqueria, which opened inside Tributary Food Hall in September, and will soon bring us Nosu Ramen across the street. Together, Brandon and Noah are making an enormous contributions to Golden's economy, our culinary options, our social gathering places, and our sense of community. I congratulate Brandon and Noah for receiving this well-deserved honor by Mayor Marjorie Sloan. Thank you for your contributions to our community. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud Fighting Hunger at Mines for receiving the Golden Mayor's GoldMine Award for Excellence. Fighting Hunger at Mines is a unique campus group that is dedicated to improving the physical and mental health of students at Mines and the Golden community. Their programming addresses food insecurity that's pervasive on college campuses while raising awareness to local food resources and educating students on healthy eating habits. By working with the Golden Backpack Program, Go Farm, and other partners, Fighting Hunger at Mines distributes healthy food to nearly 150 students each week and has made a substantial difference on campus and in Golden. I congratulate Fighting Hunger at Mines for receiving this well-deserved honor by Mayor Marjorie Sloan. Thank you for your contributions to our community. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. Now, if you could all bear with me just one moment, we do have one more congressional record to present to a very vital and important person that has been a part of our community for a long, long time. So, Jason, would you like to join me on stage? Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and applaud Mayor Marjorie Sloan for her many years of service to the City of Golden. Marjorie Sloan has dutifully served as the 37th mayor for the City of Golden for 8 years, and as the first female mayor elected by the citizens since Golden became a home rule city. Before she was elected as mayor, Marjorie represented Golden's District 1 as a city councilor for 4 years. Marjorie, her husband Dendy, and their children have lived in Golden for decades. In addition to her roles on city council, Marjorie also served as Planning Commission chair, Foothills Arts Center board president, Golden Urban Renewal Authority board member, volunteer, parent, neighbor, and all-around general Golden ambassador. Mayor Marjorie Sloan's legacy of leadership, vision, and trailblazing on behalf of the city will not soon be forgotten. I extend my deepest thanks and appreciation to Mayor Sloan for her service and commitment to our community and her service to the people of Golden, Colorado. Sincerely, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress.
And Mayor, before we turn the microphone back over to you.
This is not in the program.
I know it's not in the program. We're going to interrupt your proceedings here for a second because we have a special award to present tonight. The mayor's, as you all know, the mayor's awards for excellence are about recognizing Goldenites who have contributed greatly to making a difference in our community. And as that's the case, we would be remiss in not recognizing one person here tonight that has given so much to the Golden community over the past decade and more, our own Mayor, Marjorie Sloan. As you know, Mayor Sloan is in the final months of a successful 2 terms as mayor of our great city, and tonight is the final time she will preside over the mayor's awards ceremony. Marjorie's influence has extended beyond the virtue of simply holding the office of mayor. Rather, she has leveraged her energy, her talent, and the passion she has for our community to truly make a difference for Golden. With an unassuming style, yet fervent love for Golden, Mayor Sloan has regularly demonstrated her commitment to improving the community she calls home. She has advocated for sprucing up our community through supporting efforts such as Mine's Hell of a Service event or neighborhood block cleanups. She has encouraged civic engagement through promoting volunteer participation, often leading by example. She has inspired unexpected and random acts of generosity and kindness, knowing that they lie at the heart of community. In times of disagreement, she has led by bringing people together and reminding them of our shared values. She serves as a true ambassador for Golden, not only by showcasing our fine city to international visitors, which she's done several times, but also by enriching our community, embracing a tradition we celebrate here tonight, and that is recognizing those in our community that have gone above and beyond. Mayor Sloan has achieved success advocating for issues that are near and dear to her heart, and that will have a positive, lasting impact on Golden. Marjorie has fought for reliable and efficient public transit in Golden, often directly challenging RTD leaders to do more. She has brought awareness to the issue of gun violence in our communities and has made Golden safer by leading an effort to pass safe gun storage legislation. And perhaps most significantly, her ability to build consensus on the strengths of regional partnerships has never been more evident than her work on an agreement with CDOT to achieve a better plan, our plan, the Golden Plan, for the US 6 Highway 93 corridor. As a result of her efforts, we now have one of the most celebrated public works projects in the state of Colorado, the Lincoln Lookout Project. These are just a few of the examples of Marjorie's measurable and lasting contributions to our community. All of her work has been guided by a fierce advocacy for Golden, or as she puts it, our town nestled in the enduring foothills, serving as a welcoming and safe place for people of varied cultures, ages, income levels, preferences, and length of residence. For all of this, and for her deep commitment to Golden, tonight we are pleased to award her what we're calling the Mayor of Excellence Award. Please join me in congratulating Mayor Marjorie Sloan for a job well done. Now you can have the microphone back.
Thank you all. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate being part of your lives for this time. So thank you for allowing me to serve as your mayor. I appreciate every one of you and everything about our town of Golden. Thank you. And now, I did tell that Carlin really organized this, but Carlin, this is not in the book. She could have done better. She could have given me a warning, but thank you. Now it's my honor to introduce to you tonight's keynote speaker, Martín Carcasson. We are really fortunate to be on his 2019 tour because he speaks all over the state and the country, and tonight we have him here. He is the founding director of the Center for Public Deliberation at Colorado State University. He's an expert on how communities can overcome challenges and bridge division when they focus on addressing wicked problems instead of seeing individuals with different viewpoints as wicked people. As we look for better ways to have meaningful conversations in our community, this is a great time to learn how to have those conversations in a respectful, beneficial, and powerful way. Please welcome Dr. Martine Carcasson. Thank you, Martine.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary. And congratulations to the mayor, and congratulations to all the winners tonight. And thank you so much for having me up, and thanks, Alex, for all the help that you had kind of behind the scenes getting me here. So my work for almost the last 25 years now has been how do we talk about tough issues. So I'm a communication professor. I was trained as an argumentation scholar, so I've been trained like how do people make arguments? What reasons do they give? What evidence? What logic or lack thereof? You know, how do they tell stories? How do they use emotions? All those type of things. I teach classes like argumentation. I teach persuasion. I teach social movements. So I've always just looked at how do we talk to each other. Particularly passionate about democracy and how do we get democracy to work as it should. And I imagine most of y'all will agree right now that democracy is struggling a little bit. It's getting a little scary out there. We're actually getting more and more research that shows we're more divided now by party than anything else, right? Whether that's religion or race or age or anything. Pew Research has been asking this question of, would you be willing to let your children marry someone from the other party? Right? And that was always kind of pretty low. In just the last 10 years, that's kind of shot up in a sense. And in the sense that it's not just kind of disagreeing with the other side, but it's mixing now kind of with this notion of contempt, which is kind of an anger combining with disgust in a way, right? That all being said, I'll tell some bad news today, but most of today will be good news, right? Because as bad as it is, particularly at the national level, more and more, particularly as I go across the country, and other scholars like me are seeing great examples in local communities. Right? And we heard earlier kind of the examples of democracy from these meetings. And that's really where I reach out to. When you think about, what is democracy? What picture gets in your head? Lots of people kind of focuses on elections. And elections are good, but elections are really divisive, right? Elections, you only have two choices. So they're not, for me, the best representation of democracy, right? Often people look at democracy and see maybe a march is kind of, this is what democracy looks like, right? In a lot of ways, a march or a protest is kind of the failure of democracy, right? The system's not working well, so we have to take it to the streets, right? The ideal of democracy for me is the stories we heard today, or a lot of the work that I do. So what I do at CSU, I train undergraduate students to be facilitators, and we run events in the community. I think it sounds a lot like Golden United, right? That we get people to come together and we give them a better way to talk about the tough issues. Because for me, the heart of democracy is people coming together and talking through and deciding how to act together on the shared problems that we have. Right? So I decided to kind of talk about tonight, partly because one of your council members has already heard me talk like 10 times. So I was trying to come up with some new material for her. So I feel like a comedian, right? I'm working out some new stuff today. We'll see kind of how it works. Some of it will be all. But a lot of my work is now kind of dedicated to creating ways for people to have the conversations we need to have, particularly at the local level, to deal with the problems that we're dealing with. So I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to turn this on first. I'm going to make 3 points. One, I'm going to share a little bit of my research lately on why we're so angry and polarized, right? Because we're going to have to understand the situation to be able to kind of treat it well, right? So I'm going to cover that kind of pretty quickly. Then I'm going to talk a little bit, most of my stuff is about process, right? How do we bring together, how do you design meetings in a different way that brings stuff out? I'm going to touch on that a little bit. But because this is the examples that we've heard tonight, and some other things that I'll kind of mention, I want to focus a little bit more on what kind of citizen do we need for democracy to work well, right? And when I use the word citizen, I do want to say that I'm not talking about legal status, right? I'm talking about kind of an older kind of philosophical status. So for me, a citizen is someone who's vested in a community, cares about the community, and wants to act to improve that community, right? So a broad range. So if you're in this room, you're a citizen regardless of any other kind of legal status, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ideal that we've had for the ideal citizen that's not working so well, right? And then I'm going to introduce kind of towards the end an alternative that I see as kind of a stretch goal ideal that I'm going to try to convince you. And I think in a lot of ways we have people that are fitting this ideal. But the more I work with cities, the more I realize that as we get more and more citizens to kind of think of their role in their community in a little different way, they can make an exponential impact, right? And often as I work with city managers and city councilors and superintendents, so much of their focus is kind of on some of the problems in the community, the usual suspects that are angry and those type of things, right? It takes up so much of their time and so much of their energy. And it reminded me of one of the basic facilitation skills we teach our students, that if you're at a table and someone's dominating being a problem, the way you deal with that is not to try to quiet them or stop them, right? The way you deal with that is to get other people at the table to speak up, right? So that's one of my overall things is, okay, how do we, instead of kind of focusing on the angry and the polarization, kind of people past each other, how do we kind of get more people to rise up and do what they need to do for our communities to work, right? So I'm going to jump in first on the why are we so angry and polarized. A few slides from a much longer presentation. If the next 5 minutes really interested in you, I'm happy to send you some material that kind of digs into this kind of a lot more. But about 4 years ago, I spent about 2 years in literature to figure out how our brains work, right? So digging into brain science and social psychology to try to understand for some of the issues that we're dealing with, how could we not get people off their positions? How could they just kind of, the anger kind of continued in some ways? So these are some of the key themes that came from that research. Most of the research was bad news. I'll share some good news, which are particularly important here in a few minutes. But first, we crave certainty and consistency. This is how our brains are wired, right? Once we make a decision, our brains are wired to kind of protect that decision and seek out information that supports that decision in lots of different ways, right? Second, we're suckers for the good versus evil narrative. We think much more in terms of stories. Kind of across all cultures, across all times, we are narrative beings. We're not reasonable, rational beings. Right? So we love the story, particularly, these are Disney villains in the picture, right? And one of the reasons Disney is so incredibly popular because it gives our brains exactly what we want. Right? Which is a simple good versus evil story. It gets, in the middle, evil's losing, so we get really nervous, right? And then good makes a comeback, and we live happily ever after, and we just eat it up, right? And we want to watch that story again and again because it's a comfort to us in lots of different ways. Part of the problem with that, as I look at my research, is we're training our children and training everybody that whenever we're confronted with a tough issue, to seek the evil behind the scenes, right? All we have to do to fix the problems we're dealing with is kind of vanquish evil, which most issues are not, unfortunately, that simple. And third, we're groupish. In a lot of the kind of popular culture, they use the word tribal. I'd rather not assume kind of tribal is inherently a negative thing. But this is a basic feature of human nature that we're designed to be social. We're designed to be in groups, right? And this is one of the most powerful things in history. Some of the worst things humans have ever done is because of this, and some of the best things humans have ever done is because of this, because we've expanded the us and redefined kind of them in some ways, right? But those three things work together in really powerful ways, and it particularly influence the fourth, which is really important to me, that because we pick a team and we believe our team's the good team and their team's the bad team, and we're certain of that, it really influences how we think and how we process information, right? Normally my presentation will go through this a lot, but I'll just kind of touch on a couple of highlights here. One thing to think about in this way, going back to kind of our narrative kind of basics, our brain is really good at getting any new information to fit within the existing narrative we have, rather than allow new information to challenge that narrative, right? And that's the power. If you've got a variety of friends on social media and something happens in the world and the interpretation of that seems like night and day to two different people, because that's how our brains work in a lot of ways, right? And most people understand cherry picking, right? Our brain is really good at cherry picking. Find the example that works for what you want, right? How many people have heard the term nut picking, right? That's a new one that's been developing. So nut picking is finding the worst possible example of the other side, right, and sharing that, right? So find some idiot on the other side, somehow represents the other side that did something kind of offensive, right? And Twitter and Facebook is great for grabbing that and sending it to all your friends to say, hey, this is what all of they think, right? We'll get back to that later because I got a new version that we're trying to kind of play with in a sense, right? And then lastly, especially if you've heard me talk about wicked problems, our brain is not wired to deal with kind of tensions and dilemmas. We want simplicity, we want certainty, right? And we work overtime to get that. Right? So that's the bad news, right? I won't walk all the way through this, but the reason we're so polarized, the quick answer to it is one, human nature, right? Our brains, unfortunately, are kind of designed to be polarization ready, right? We like that narrative of good versus evil. And then the second reason is most of our processes, unfortunately, kind of bring out the worst in us, right? The way we engage. One of the jokes I often tell that if this was Bizarro World, and my job was the opposite. Instead of my job being dedicated to figuring out ways of bringing people together to have a better conversation across perspectives, if my job was to try to bring people together and ensure the worst possible conversation, I would design our national system, right? I mean, having a two-party system that, hey, you got two teams to pick from, automatically it fits that good versus evil. Winner-take-all elections, which means there's no reason to ever listen to or try to talk to the other side. All the incentives is to mobilize my base, right? Easiest way to mobilize my base is to say horrible things about the other side, right? You add all those ingredients together, it's almost as if we designed a process to ensure we have really bad conversations, right? But again, that's all at the national level. The local level, it can be much different, as we've seen kind of all night, right? But you kind of go through all the process. The internet's so wonderful, but it also kind of does the job of taking these negative quirks of human nature and kind of exploding them, making it so easy to gather around like-minded people, so easy to cherry pick and nitpick, and kind of fuel the narratives that we have. So yeah, the problem that we face is once we understand human nature, you start looking at the processes we have, the ways we engage each other, and we recognize it's really kind of bringing out the worst in us and rarely bringing out the best. The good news is there is some good stuff to bring out of our brains. It's buried a little deeper. It's not as easy to trigger. It's not as evolved, but there's some good stuff there that we need to start figuring out how to get to a lot more. Right? So some of the good news from all my research, this first one is the flip of the coin of that we're social and kind of groupish. But humans, inherently are social. We want purpose and we want community. We get joy from living in community together. We leave our homes when it's 10 degrees to come to a campus to celebrate, excellent kind of examples of citizenship and community. So there is a kind of inherent connection there. Daniel Pink's Drive kind of gets into this. Nice little TED Talk if you like that kind of thing to kind of Google, but talks about what really motivates people. Right? And what motivates people is a sense of purpose. They want to care about something important. They want to have autonomy. They want to have self-control on how to deal with that. And they want mastery, right? They want to get good at it. So a lot of my work is to try to tap into those three motivations. And that should be all our work is how do we get people to think about the challenge of living together in diverse communities in a complex world as a challenge that's part of their purpose, right? And they want to get good at it, right? Human beings like getting good at things in so many ways. So how do we tap into that? Second, we're inherently empathetic. This is a basic kind of feature of human nature that we care about each other. The interesting thing is this primarily gets triggered through authentic conversations, through face-to-face, right? So if we rely on most of our politics being online, right, or we rarely get face-to-face with people we disagree with in kind of a productive setting, we never kind of get that, right? And that's a lot of the hopefulness. I've been running meetings for the last 13 years, bringing people together that disagree. But when you put them at a table and you have, a facilitator, and all of a sudden you kind of see, right? And the joy of my work is seeing time and time again that aha moment when people's kind of simplistic caricature of the other side melts away, right? And they have this like, that's why you think that way. Like, you make sense to me now. I still think you're wrong. Right? I still like my ideas more than your ideas, but you seem reasonable, right? And I can work with someone that's reasonable, right? We can work together with that, right? Versus assuming that he has negative motives and it's not even worth having a conversation with him. Third, we're inherently pragmatic and creative. This is a defining feature in so many ways of the human species, that we're really good problem solvers, right? The question is, how often do we tap into that natural problem-solving ability with our politics, right? Because if we have the easier story of the other side is just evil, we don't have to get creative, right? Maybe we get creative on how do we explain to people how evil they are, right? But we never actually kind of get into that, right? So that a big part of my change in the conversation is doing that. And then lastly, while the good news is not nearly as kind of easy to tap into as the bad news, we do know our brains can learn. We can build better habits. particularly in local communities, you can start building a habit of thinking differently and engaging issues differently and not being so quickly to make the assumptions of the other side. And that's certainly what we've seen building here in Golden. Because the good news is, while facts don't really change minds, facts when we're in adversarial kind of mode just kind of count as ammunition, kind of talking past each other. But real conversation with someone you disagree with is what kind of creates community and creates trust and creates those bonds that we need in our communities for democracy to work. So a lot of my work is how do we create more opportunities for people to have these kind of conversations. So now that we know kind of how our brains work and how our processes are not working, we can kind of think a little bit more about, okay, what do we do about it, right? And most of my work has been on that left side of improving our engagement processes. I'm a practitioner, I design processes, I work with the city and the county and school district and community organizations to bring people together in different ways. Normally it's a room like this, but we have 15 round tables. I have typically 2 of my students at every table, one note taker, one facilitator with design, so all these components and things that I kind of get into. And if that sounds interesting to you, again, shoot me an email, I'll be happy to kind of give you a lot of information. But I've been thinking more lately, and I thought for tonight it might be interesting for me to dive in a little bit more into a kind of a second step. That first step is a temporary one, right? That first step is I can design a process that people can be walking in with their blinders on, right? And I can design a process to help kind of temporarily get those blinders off so we can have a good conversation, right? But 2 things that I've kind of realized. One, going back to the how do we bring out kind of the silent voices that aren't so polarized, right? And the second thing is, since I've been at Fort Collins now for 13 years running these, we get a lot of people that come to my meetings that have come to several meetings. And they walk in with a different mindset, right? They don't walk in thinking, I've made my mind up, I got to convince people that I'm right and they're an idiot, right? But they're walking in thinking, my job here is to help people have a better conversation, right? My job is to kind of be learning and thinking and listening to people. And I see the impact on the conversation when just 2%, 5% of the people are walking in like that, right? So that's motivated me to think a little bit more of, yes, it's going to be hard for me to change the world 1 meeting at a time, 70 people that come to my meetings, right? So how do we start thinking about how do we train citizens? And what kind of skills and mindsets do we need the citizens to have as we think through that, right? So that's what I want to talk about in my last few minutes kind of today. Y'all got to me to 15 minutes early. Does that mean I get 15 minutes more? Do you still want me to? I'm a professor. I speak for 50 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or an hour and 15 Tuesday, Thursday. I'll get you out of here on time. So partly is, okay, how do we rethink civic education? And yes, this is about K-12 and higher ed, but a lot of it is, civic education is something that's completely ongoing for all time. We're constantly learning kind of how to do this. So a lot of people in the room, I think y'all already hear and what I'm trying to kind of do. But if you rethink your role in the community, how does this work? To go back to the improving engagement process, this is kind of the summary slide of when we do these processes well. We switch from an assumption of wicked people to wicked problems. I don't have the time to really explain wicked problems fully. That's kind of my thing. The 10-second kind of version of it is when you look at a problem through the lens of wicked problems, you're focusing on kind of the key underlying values and intentions. You're putting the wickedness in the problem versus making the easy assumption that the wickedness is in the people, right? And a big part of that is when you're able to make that shift to put the wickedness in the problem versus the people, you switch people from adversarial mode to collaborative mode. And that's a huge shift because when we're in adversarial mode, you're bringing out all that bad stuff of human nature, right? We want the simple story, we're certain, we're defensive, we cherry pick, right? When we're in collaborative mode, you're bringing out the best of human nature. You're bringing out problem solving, you're connecting to empathy, you're connecting to kind of the social, the improving the community that you can really tap into. And for those who focus on expertise and the importance of facts, when we're in adversarial mode, facts don't work, right? There's actually growing research that if I'm trying to convince you you're wrong in an adversarial kind of relationship, the better my argument, the higher quality my facts, the more you might actually backfire, right? Just kind of how our brains work. Because your brain has to work overtime to convince you that you're right and I'm wrong, right? So that at the end of the exchange, you feel even more sure that you're right, right? Some scary research out there of high quality information injected into a controversial issue just kind of increases the polarization. So facts aren't going to save us. What's going to save us is changing how we talk to each other so facts can kind of matter again, right? So when we switch from adversarial to collaborative, all of a sudden we want good information, right? The facts aren't strong enough to make the decision decisions for us, but facts help us make better decisions. Right? So that's my engagement kind of thing in a nutshell. But I want to get into now, first, the limits. When I did a lot of the research on civic education, looking again at both K-12 and higher ed and kind of adult education and Citizens Academy and those things like that, like how are we training people to be involved in our communities, the two adjectives that came up over and over again were informed and engaged. Right? It was this kind of belief that if people just read the newspaper, right, democracy would work so well. And if you look at how we train students in civic education and classes, and really once I did the social psychology, I looked back at all the classes I taught, and it was based on this model, right? That if we just get people to be informed and understand the issues, then when they engage, they'll be engaged kind of positively. Right? But the social psychology shows us that that's not right? That this informed, engaged kind of model doesn't fit how we know our brains work and our institutions work, right? So to dig into that, three big problems with the informed and engaged model is it doesn't account for human nature, right? Especially in the internet age. It's so easy to find information. And kind of the story I can tell to give you a good sense of this, I've taught public speaking classes for years as a graduate student, then I taught argumentation debate classes, then I taught persuasion classes. And I realized after the fact, that I look back, so many of the assignments I gave my students, and I imagine you'll remember some of these yourselves, right? Whether it's high school or college or whatever, was pick something you're passionate about and then go out there and research, right? And then write a speech or write a paper. We were training students to cherry pick, right? We were asking them to start with the argument, right? I want to convince people of this, right? And then go find evidence of that. And we were just training them in some ways to put the blinders on and just to see one side of the issue, right? Instead of training them to ask good questions and look for the tensions and help people kind of come together, right? The informed often means misinformed. People think that the more you're educated, the less likely you are to kind of fall for the confirmation bias and selective exposure and echo chambers and things like that. But most of the research actually shows the opposite, right? In some ways, the more educated you are, the better you get at confirmation bias, right? That you have more tools to know how to research, and you're better able to kind of seek out information that supports your position. Right? So we're realizing that often the more informed someone feels they are, the more misinformed they are because they're informing themselves through a specific filter that seeks out confirmation, and avoids just confirmation. So lastly, when we look at the informed and engaged citizen, informed often leads to misinformed, which means engaged often means engaged badly, right? Engaged kind of with one side that fuels that adversarial culture that makes it so hard for us to kind of understand each other and kind of talk past each other. So tonight, I'm imagining kind of a different alternative of what we want for our ideal of the citizen, which I'm framing as the wise collaborator, right? That I think if we start thinking about this is the goal that we're trying to get at all levels, we'll get much different kind of results. We'll take our polarization-ready brains that we're born with, right, and we'll kind of adapt them in some sense. We'll inoculate ourselves against some of the worst kind of aspects of human nature, and then hopefully develop kind of more deliberation-ready or engagement-ready brains that help us have the skill sets and the mindsets that we need to take on the challenges in our communities. So with that, the wise collaborator, two words there that I want to dig into. One is wise, that connects to wisdom. And one of the really fascinating and I think sad things is I was looking at all the literature on civic education, K-12 and higher ed. The words wisdom and judgment rarely appeared, right? Those used to be really powerful words, and kind of the point of higher education was to develop wisdom and judgment, and we've kind of lost that, right? Part of the history of higher ed and early part of the 20th century, we kind of switched models and focused on this German model of education, which was much more about discovery and information, right? And that's where we split up into all these disciplines and those type of things of how do we produce kind of new knowledge. And when we lost in that transition, I think we shifted too much. We got away from wisdom, which is how do we make decisions when all the information isn't in, right? And when we're talking about political issues, the information is not all in, right? You're always kind of making decisions based on limited information. So when we think about wisdom being a key aspect of a citizen, part of it is recognizing the importance and the limitation of good information, that you're never going to have enough, right? So you need good information to make decisions, but you realize a big part of wisdom, going back to Socrates, is you're wise when you recognize what you don't know, right? Rather than focusing just on what you know. A big part of wisdom is being more comfortable with uncertainty, right? More and more research coming out about the importance of intellectual humility, right? Or if you like Brene Brown's work, the importance of being vulnerable, right? This goes against human nature. We want to be certain, right? We typically reward people that are so sure they're right. We need to start changing that around, particularly for our leaders, right? There's such power when our leaders kind of embrace uncertainty and help us kind of muddle through that, right? Rather than surrendering to the simple story. Wisdom means to build habits to work against those negative quirks of human nature, right? How do we look at those things and knowing how our brains work and develop the skills to kind of push back on that? And a big part of wisdom is to seek out opposing ideas. So we talked about cherry picking earlier, and we talked about nut picking. So developing the idea of like pearl picking, right? That when you're listening to someone you disagree with, inherently your brain is going to be looking for flaws, right? Looking for something that they say wrong, looking for your chance to kind of jump in, right? There's an old New York governor that said, listening in the United States is a competitive exercise in which the first person to take a breath is deemed a listener, right? So that's how we listen to each other often, right? We're listening to win, listening to fight. Part of wisdom is you might disagree with 99% of what they're saying, right? But if your mindset is saying, what can I learn from this person, right? Is there a pearl in there somewhere that helps me kind of understand and maybe connect and maybe move forward? And then lastly, wisdom maintains what's called a growth mindset, called work, right? That we know that we're constantly learning, right? That we're in that model, so to get away again from the lure of certainty. And then the second word, collaborator, I think becomes a really important word to kind of think through, both in terms of, it's still idealistic, but it brings in some realism, right? Because a big part of collaboration is knowing the best way forward is to work with other people, right? But at the same time, we're not asking people to give up your interests or not have your own, we're recognizing that, hey, you're human, you're gonna have your interests. But how do we get people to realize that the best way for my interest to be really fulfilled is to know your interests and then figure out ways for us to work together. So your mindset becomes kind of making those connections. And I know collaboration is a buzzword. Everyone loves collaboration. We all know collaboration's hard, right? So collaboration becomes a function or a key kind of element of democracy. We have to kind of build up the skills and the capacity to support that. A collaborator understands the importance of process. And we get more and more people that realize how we talk to each other and how to create ways of talking to each other becomes important. We build skills like listening and asking questions and speaking to be heard by those that disagree. And what I mean by that is we get a lot of practice speaking to people that agree with us. Right? The internet's great at that, right? Most of the organizations we join because they think like us, right? We like to hang around friends that think like us and talk about the topics we all agree on. And so we're really good at preaching to the choir. That's our brains are good at that. We get a lot of practice. We get a lot less practice trying to talk to people we disagree with, right? So those three skills. And I think about this, going back, think about all the years of education that everyone in this room has had. How many classes that you took that were focusing on you expressing yourself, whether that was, through speaking or through writing or through, art or whatever, right? I mean, every year, 3 or 4 classes, right? How many classes have you took that were about listening or asking good questions? Those are huge skills for democracy, huge skills for problem solving. We don't train as much on that, right? Because again, human nature is much more about having an opinion and expressing it versus the struggling through process, right? And then last, and this is what's really kind of was shown tonight with the award winners, that when you're thinking about collaborators know that you move to action with a broad range of actors, right? We heard so much today about, yes, there's a role for government, there's a role for nonprofit, there's a role for private industries, right? There's a role for volunteers. That's how kind of communities work, right? So many of our political conversations are primarily about what government should do or what individuals should do. There's a whole range of different institutions and sectors across that when we open up that conversation, communities start working very differently, right? And a collaborator naturally kind of thinks about that, an adversarial political conversation is typically about blame, right? Whose fault is it and who should fix it? Whereas a collaborative conversation is much more about accountability. What should we do, right? With that capital we being so critical. So developing that, part of this would have implications on how we do civic education, what kind of projects, what kind of training that we give. A lot of it is that I've been working with directly with ICMA, some other organizations, about municipal engagement. How do we rethink citizen academies? How do we think about how boards and commissions kind of work, right? And what training people are given to do that, or even kind of council members. And then a big part of it too is providing people genuine opportunities for practice. Because to go back to the 2 steps, we need better engagement processes and better kind of citizen training. Those are kind of like a yin and a yang, right? Because if we train people to be collaborators, but then all the processes that they're a part of are adversarial, they're going to get run over, right? But if we train people, but if we provide more and more opportunities, but all those meetings we're having to spend half the meeting just to kind of retrain people on how to think, right? We're going to go pretty slowly. But if we have different engagement processes that are rewarding people for good behavior, right? That we're rewarding people, instead of rewarding people that have the simple stories, we reward people that kind of engage the nuance, right? Then we can really start building the kind of communities that we need, right? I'll end by saying, I know this is idealistic, right? From the very beginning, going back to the Greek democracy in a way, the big kind of dispute was, can citizens handle this, right? Are we, can democracy work in some sense? And quite honestly, there's a book that was just written by a political scientist called Against Democracy that makes a pretty compelling case that no, right? Like we have 200 years of evidence from this American experience, and most of the evidence points to, they're pretty easily manipulated, right? And democracy is not working so well, right? But part of the reason, I think, goes back to how are we training our citizens and how are we engaging our citizens? And as we know now more and more about how the brain works, we can start making the kind of changes to both of those to start getting closer to what we need. And we're never going to have we're never going to train students just right. We're never going to engage people just right. But to go back to the preamble of the Constitution, I love the phrasing that they use, that we wanted to work towards a more perfect union. They recognize we're never going to have a perfect union. We're never going to get it right? But democracy is an ongoing process and an ongoing kind of conversation in some ways. Right? So hopefully, as I play with this new ideal of the wise collaborator, as what we're trying to kind of aspire for our citizens to be, we'll never quite get there, right? But I think the closer we get as we move towards there, we'll start making some pretty big impacts in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was terrific. And Martine is right. We do have a little bit of extra time that we could use if anyone has questions. I realize you have not had the class in how to ask an informed question. But maybe somebody here has one?
How do you get your news?
How do I get my news? Oh, that's a great question. Lots of different, there's a new website that I've been playing with a little bit called All Sides. Partly because the person that created it's coming to campus in 2 weeks. So he's got a great TED Talk with him and Joan Blades. So Joan Blades is the person, she actually started Move On, so she's kind of Democratic Party activist, but then she started an organization called Living Room Conversations, which is all designed to get people to kind of have conversations across sides. So that's one tool. And then, I'm forgetting his name now. But he's started All Sides, so he was kind of more Republican of that. So they're going to have this talk of bringing people together. But All Sides is nice. You search for a thing, for a topic, and it gives you kind of something from the right, something from the left, something kind of leans right and left, and something from the center. Right? It's a nice little Twitter thing too that will constantly kind of give you some of those. But yeah, I have a pretty broad variety of getting news from lots of different places. I will say, part of everyone talks about breaking your selective exposure or your filter bubbles or echo chambers, those type of things. Part of what you try to do is seek out strong kind of opinions on the other side, right? So don't kind of. One of our biggest problems is some of the loudest voices are pundits, right? That they're not there to try to provide you news; they're trying to rile people up, right? So how do you kind of get to the deeper news in some ways? Yes, sir.
I'm Marky.
Yeah.
Have you thought about terms that would be in a curriculum for training boards or educating boards and commissions? So we have oodles of people apply. It's tough to pick out of these big lists of people. And then we just throw them in the fire. So do you have suggestions for us about topics that could be
in terms of like training for new counselors with those type of things? Yeah.
We know there's
Yeah.
things for new counselors
Yeah.
around, but how about boards and commissions to prepare them for the give and take and the challenges that they face?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think a lot of, I got a meeting tomorrow with Fort Collins is trying to rethink all their boards and commissions. So I have a meeting tomorrow specifically about this. How do we kind of reimagine these in some ways? And it's interesting, I think lots of boards and commissions work really well. Some of them don't. I remember I've got this one kind of slide that talks about, and it has boards and commissions on that. And I was going to a certain city, I won't mention the city, and they actually emailed me beforehand. After I sent them my slides, they emailed me back and say, can you take boards and commissions out? Because if you even say those two words, the whole room's going to blow up, right? So clearly for that city, boards and commissions were not a net positive to democracy. I think sometimes boards and commissions fill with either experts or advocates for particular issues. So then the board and commission is just kind of a fixed battle between perspectives. So how can we turn boards and commissions into a more deliberative body, right? That it becomes, so a lot of that will be how does the city engage them, right? What kind of questions you ask, what tasks are you giving them to do? Maybe one, I think I can do this pretty quickly. So one of the assignments I do for my students now, once I realized that I was training them to be cherry pickers, right, and just kind of rewarding their biases. So I took the debate class that we used to teach, which was very much pick a side and go research for that side. So now their job in that class is to pick an issue, they research it like crazy, and so expertise matters, data matters, but then their job by the end of the class is not to make a decision, not even to make an argument for what we should do about that issue, but to lay out the options, right? Their job is to create this community discussion guide, saying, okay, here's an issue we care about, right? And here's at least 3 kind of approaches that we can take. With the wicked problems perspective, there's no magic bullets. There's no solution that will solve that problem for all time, right? All solutions have some kind of trade-offs. They do some values well and some values not. So that's one way I'd play with boards and commissions, that you're not asking them to solve problems or even making specific recommendations. Y'all should do X. A lot of their work should be, here's some choices that we have. Here's the research we did, but you're helping, whether it's the council or the community, right, make better decisions from that, right, versus trying to make the decision for them. Yeah.
Do you use Twitter, and do you recommend people be on Twitter?
I do use Twitter. Do I recommend people being on that? I think Twitter can be a very useful tool if you use it right, right? It can also be an incredible time suck that takes away a lot of your time. I was successful. My earlier work was all on presidential rhetoric. I mean, I was trained. Most of my dissertation looked at how presidents from Johnson talked about welfare and poverty issues. And I made the transition when I got to CSU 16 years ago switching from national politics to local, partly just because at that point I already realized national politics was going to be a really depressing thing to study for the next 40 years of my life, right? So I decided let's go to local where I think maybe we can make a difference, right? And I also kind of shifted from being more of an academic, just like a critic, right, talking about how the people talk about politics, to being more a practitioner kind of now, right? Which is great, because if I stayed with that, I'd basically be a Twitter scholar now. That'd be what I'd be kind of focusing on in a way. But I was able to kind of avoid national politics for a few years there. The last few years, it's been a little bit too hard to kind of avoid. I think it's pretty interesting to look at, and if you go look at my Twitter and who I follow, right? Who are you following from different sides? Are you using it to confirm your biases, or are you using it to kind of see lots of different sides? And I think, and it's been a really good tool for a lot of academics to get their, for too long we've rewarded academics for publishing in these narrow journals that only other academics read, and the whole tenure process rewards that. Twitter and Facebook allows some academics to actually engage the public a lot more and share some of their research, and there's some pretty nice examples of that to follow. But yeah, it's pretty dangerous and depressing at times.
All right, that was absolutely terrific. Let's thank Dr. Carcasson one more time.
Thank you. And I grew up in Houston. It's Game 7. I don't know. We'll see when I get back to my phone if I'm happy about those last 45 minutes. But.
I'm pretty sure somebody out there can tell you. No. Thank you so much. That was great. All right, we are bringing this evening's events to close. And I'd like to thank the nominators of the awardees and all the nominations and the nominators, the members of the committee who worked hard to identify tonight's winners. We all win when members of our community care enough to give back, and that's what we've shown tonight, how many folks we have who do give back. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening and stay warm and safe. Good night, all.